Jason, for the last one, Lucas Hedeke 7980 has written something. Would you like to read it, Jason?
Sure. When it comes to the OG Heroscape, it's definitely gone up 50% in value the past couple years. Doesn't matter if it's a rare set, a wave, or very common, they've all gone up.
Yeah, and this is me from last time making a very brain dead comment where was wondering like with Renegade stuff coming out, would that mean that like original Heroscape stuff is going to be like lesser or higher in value? And I was kind of like indicating that maybe it's going to be lesser, but then people are like saying, no, Ryan, what are you talking about? It's going to be more. It's going to be more. It's like...
It depends on how useful the old stuff is going to be with the new stuff. It kind of is hit or miss at other games where when new stuff comes out, if it's a lot better than the old stuff value drops off really quickly. But if, the old stuff is still fairly useful, then new players want the old stuff. So I don't know. Kind of see how things work out over time.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
It's really crazy because like I use Joe Carr's his spreadsheet of all of his pricings to kind of gauge where the market is on Heroscape, and I bought from him somewhat recently, like middle of last year, and I checked recently and it was like everything had gone up like 20%, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I should have bought these Fourth Mass like last year, because now they were like 25 back then and now like $40, and it's people are picking up the new stuff, and units like Death Chasers, for example, they're going to be bonding with Adelburn soon to be released, and there's not going to be enough Death Chasers in the world.
How are you going? Well, there's not enough right now. Even like the D&D molds, they're getting bought up, and you can barely find those anymore. You have to like 3D print them.
Yeah, it makes me, really happy that I picked up 6 squads back when I was in college, just like on a whim. I was like, I like these guys, because I could not spend, what is it, like $80, $70-$80 on a squad. So yeah, anybody that's trying to get into Heroscape, I highly recommend investing in a 3D printer or finding a friend with a 3D printer, because you're gonna save a lot of money.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Has Renegade released an official statement on 3D printed miniatures in their tournaments?
They are not allowing 3D printed miniatures, which I do hope that they maybe come around on that, at least for like, anything released before 2011, right? Like, because if they have no plans to reprint those units, it's not like all that money is going to go to like people who were going to buy new Heroscape are going to, instead buy a 3D printer, right? Like, I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to be really hard to sustain a community unless you help them out, in that way. But we've seen they've been pretty lax so far.
And here, I'm just gonna go to the comments real quick. And Fat Sammy says, and I mean fat, I mean PHAT. Not to sound insulting, but Fat Sammy says, made it just in time to catch it live. Glad to have you, Sammy. But Derek here says, once Renegade said there would be no reprints, it was like blood in the water for sharks. Suddenly, every auction is super rare and out of print. And Derek also says, Renegade said no 3D prints in tournaments, but Chris Pine used a 3D printed Marku in the Gen Con Championship last year, and he was not disqualified. He rode real one with them just in case. Or Chris Perkins. Okay, if you're talking about knowing Chris Pine, that would be awesome, because Chris Pine, the actor. But no,
Heroscaper Chris Pine.
That would be kind of cool if Chris Pine. I know he hasn't, like, I don't think I've seen him done much in films lately, but if he was playing Heroscape, that would be dope. That would be kind of dope. But yeah, no, I was going to mention that, Derek, that, us as a community, we can make 3D prints that looks so good that, I mean, and the thing is that we paint original molds all the time anyway, that it's hard to tell sometimes if it's original or if it's like been a repainted original or a 3D printed painted one that looks like an original. So that's really hard to judge. I mean, I know they say that you know, it's not allowed, but honestly, how are you going to tell? I mean, I think this might be internally something that they might have to course correct, because I understand, in one sense, I understand the rule, because then you could just throw anything in there. But when it's something that looks, you know, as like the original, that you can't tell the difference, then what are you going to do about it? You know, I mean, obviously you're not going to, like, say, you know, grab a pawn from like the chessboard and be like, okay, this is, you know, a Drake Alexander. No, I mean, obviously that's not going to do it. But when it's something you can't tell the difference about and you have the card, you know, why not?
I wonder if there's a concern of, on topic of having the card, like if people are bringing an actual copy of the card with 3D printed miniature, or they bring in a printout of the card. And therefore, if they're bringing a printout of the card, is that card entirely accurate? And then it comes up to whoever's running the tournament to basically look at every card, comparing it to like Heroscapers.com, and make sure all the text of all the special abilities is right, and make sure that the health is not up by 1 or whatever it is. And that becomes a bit of a real nightmare for the tournament runners. That
is another good point. And I'll counter in saying that they probably don't check that as well either, because we, us as a community, we reprint original cards almost as good as the original ones as well. Yeah. So it's tough.
It's just too hard to
flush out counterfeits. It's really tough, unless it's just like you have individual players playing and then someone points out, oh, hey, look, something looks off with this card. As long as if it's an exact reprint of the card, then no problem, you know. But yeah, if you're like altering the stats, then yeah, obviously of course not. I mean, I think if you're any type of competitive Heroscape player, you should have a measure of goodwill in you to not do that type of cheating, because like how does who says don't be a d-bag? I think that's what most of the ScapeCon
don't be a jackwagon.
Yeah, don't be a jackwagon. Yeah, there you go. Matthias Maccabees says that. So yeah. I would. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say that, like, I understand if Renegade is like, they obviously don't want people reprinting the stuff that is being produced by them. Mm-hmm. Like, that makes total sense. Sure. I like, as a company, that makes total sense. You know, you want them to spend their $25 on a Hellforged Manticore that they bought from your company. But if they have no intentions to reprint old stuff, I don't see there being that big of a deal. It being that big of a deal, especially when like the aftermarket is how it is right now.
It's nuts. I think it's gonna. I mean, if the Renegade stuff gets more and more popular, I don't know. That's just gonna be.
There is also a whole problem and issue with copyright, because I assume Hasbro still owns the copyright to the original Heroscape stuff. And very likely, obviously, this gets into the legal question of what the license agreement is, but it's probably Hasbro's problem to enforce that copyright. It's probably not Renegade's. I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't know what their legal agreement is. But if people are now 3D printing a whole bunch of original Heroscape stuff and using that in Renegade events, that potentially could make a Renegade liable for copyright infringement, or make it look like they're facilitating copyright infringement, and they don't want to tick off Hasbro because Hasbro has a license. They can pull the license.
Okay,
it's a lot of theory crafting. It's not like Hasbro would do that, but that is one of those things you have to think about as a company who's holding onto a license, where you only have part of the intellectual property.
So as Renegade, just to protect themselves legally, they have to say this type of thing.
Yes,
basically.
possibly. They may be thinking that.
Okay.
That may be a thought going through their head. Or they may just be thinking we don't want to tick off Hasbro. Because if Hasbro pulls a license, then they're screwed.
Yeah, that is very true. Hexala says, Renegades Certified Future Inspector Program. Hey, that title. You could probably hire a few dozen hundred. Fat Sammy says, struggles of success. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lucas, for that comment and following discussion. And thank you, everybody, for the comments. Thank you, Jason and Jack, for your input and help here.